to this computer. And all right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Friday Morning Shakeup with your host, of course, Dean Bryan. I'm here today with my man, Carlos Perry, and I had all your stuff brought up. And, of course, I closed out. Sorry this morning if you're joining us and we're like a half an hour late. Actually, we're going to be a lot more than a half hour late because you're not going to be seeing this live because we've had some technical difficulties this morning. And unfortunately, we were not able to live stream for whatever reason. We're still trying to figure that out. I tried mine, he tried his, so we are where we are right now. Okay, so Carlos, a little backstory on Carlos. Carlos and I go way back to the days of college at Cal U. Both majored in sports medicine, athletic training, and did our thing. He was Carlos, were you 2 years under me?
Yeah.
I can't. Well, technically 3 years under me, but I won't get into that. The whole transfer thing, and we went through college and ended up actually working in kind of the same conference. Well, actually, the same conference. Depending on what sport it was, the same conference and at a high school level in Washington, D.C. Carlos is from that area. And I was not, but it was a recent transplant to that area, and it was odd. We actually interviewed for the same job, right? And Carlos actually got it over me. This was not without me even knowing. We later on found this out. Is that right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, no, we've been friends. We talk on and off. I haven't talked to you in a while. I haven't seen you in a while. And the first thing I want to say is, dude, you're looking good. I've been watching you, keeping up with you. Those who don't know Carlos, when I remember Carlos, this little chunkier version of Carlos from what you are now. You've done a lot of fantastic things with your life and kind of your career and how you've advanced yourself, both physically but also in your career aspirations as well. You've done a lot of different things. So kind of tell us a little bit about your journey and what's led you from graduating from sports medicine to where you're at right now.
Whew, man. That journey took a lot of turns. Once I graduated from Cal, I immediately started working in a physical therapy clinic. So that's when I soon learned how much power we lose in that setting.
Yeah.
From there, my certification exam was in that August. The first time I took it, Dean, I missed the written sem by 1 point.
Yeah. I'm a terrible test taker, right? I did okay. Like earlier on in school, I didn't really care about school when I was in high school. I cared about playing football and baseball. That's all I cared about. I went to a small farm town. I wasn't worried about grades, to be honest with you, until like my junior and senior year. But test taking has always been an issue for me. The first time I took the NAT exam, I did terrible on. I barely, just barely didn't pass, but I didn't pass my first time. So I hear you.
I would have rather had tanked it than failed by 1 point.
No, I get you.
At the buzzer. So when I went back, I smoked it. So from there, I ended up interviewing at Georgetown Prep. So in between that time, I actually end up being let go from the physical therapy clinic because the therapist I worked with had a baby.
Oh.
We worked in pest control, Dean. Learned a lot, but it was a fun job. But I definitely learned a lot about insects and rodents. So moving on, I ended up at Georgetown Prep, and I was there for 2 years. Yes, from 05 to 07.
Yeah.
Went through a little, I guess you could call bargaining with the higher ups to get a raise, and they told me no. Georgetown Prep, of all places, told me they didn't have money to give me a $12,000 raise.
Well, that's because they spent it all on that $60 million facility they have.
Bro, the freshman class raised $29 million over the summer. From there, I just got online and I said, you know what, just let me put myself out there. By then I had finished my master's at Cal online through exercise science. And during that time, I got in a bad motorcycle accident. So during that time frame in 2006, January, I just decided to start eating differently. By March, I was down like 30 pounds. I get in a horrific motorcycle accident. Thank God I'm alive. I'm not paralyzed. I broke my scaphoid, which we know is the worst bone in the body to break in terms of healing. So that recovery was about 10 months. During that time, I lost like 80 pounds, just changing the way I eat. I was still dizzy as heck trying to go through courses. And one of the professors at Cal actually failed me while I was heavily concussed and I couldn't write. So
who was that?
One class, what's his name? I have to get it. Till this day, when I see him, we go back and forth. But I had to take it. So it took me 1.5 years instead of a year. That next summer, I retook his course and passed it. From there, I ended up at Howard University as the head athletic trainer. When we went to Cal, they always told us you would end up somewhere where you don't have much of anything.
Yeah.
I thank all of those professors for all of the things we went through. Joni, I thank them all because when I got to Howard, my training room was probably about 15 by 10.
Yeah.
This is Division I school now. 20 plus sports, and there were 2 athletic trainers.
Yeah.
So it was a grind. It was a grind, but I enjoyed it. The athletes were great. I was later able to actually hire who's now like one of my best friends, a guy who had just graduated physical therapy to help out because we had insurance and he could bill. So that took some weight off of us. He ended up traveling and now he still does Howard and Bowie State.
Dude with glasses?
Yes.
Yes. What was his name? I can't remember. I remember meeting him.
Mike. His name's Mike.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So that helped out. I was able to hire 2 assistants and I was there for 3 years. Went through the same battle with them in terms of I was actually on the verge of starting an athletic training program there. And I found out I was having the kids. So with that schedule, it's rough on being a parent, I was working 16-hour days, traveling 3 to 4 days a week. So I decided to change careers. I ended up going into law enforcement, in which I maintained my certification. I would go help out at Howard for probably about the first 2 years. I would help out here and there where I could. And through that affiliation, when the NFL ATC spotter for concussion came up, one of my assistants at Howard was a part-time athletic trainer with the Redskins. So we were covering games. When that program first started, I get a call, hey, would you like to, help out with this program? I'm like, sure. They're going to pay us to watch football? Okay. So that started in 2012. I am now the lead athletic training spotter here in Washington, D.C. I have a staff of 4 that work with me, and we cover those games. So it's been a journey. Outside of that, in 2013, my best friend and my cousin, we were all in law enforcement, and we decided to come up with a fitness company because I had been training people. My cousin was a military fitness coordinator, and my best friend started his training company shortly after college, after he did the combine and things. And we decided to call it what you see here, Pinpoint. For whatever reason, we all end up going our separate ways. I kept the name, and I've been driving it in the ground ever since. So it works out. My best friend of Gibson Performance Training, Chase Young, is one of his athletes. So awesome. He is doing very well. He does much. His business and yours are almost identical, except he's a boxer. He does everything. And I'm so happy for him because, just watching him come up and, he's calling me when he's taking the NASM courses, asking questions, and he is flourishing, man. So it all worked out, but this, became my baby. And it's gone places I never imagined, into bodybuilding. Like, my background. I never thought I'd be in bodybuilding. I knew nothing about it except for magazines. And it became something that initially was, I want to see if I can do this. I believe I have the discipline to do it. And now going into my 4th year of it. Hopefully being able to compete later on this year. So it's been a journey, Dane, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, well, you've done great for yourself. You were always a smart kid. And I remember, and full disclosure, Carlos had probably the best mentor through college, me, and and that's he was assigned to me through our athletic training program or whatever like that. But Carlos was very bright, and Carlos, you've been an entrepreneur for as long as I remember, because you started a clothing line company back when you were in high school. Is that correct?
It was actually 9.
9.
In high school, it was the reason I really didn't have to work. And even at Cal, I was airbrushing portraits for people.
Yeah.
It wasn't tutoring. So yeah.
Yeah, so that entrepreneurial thing for you is not a new thing for you. That's kind of like second nature for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thankful, especially in times like these. I have a lot of things to fall back on, which a lot of people may not have. So I'm always thankful for that. But yeah, man, you were definitely a great mentor. That's for sure. And Kenny, you didn't forget Kenny, man. You guys are like peas in a pod, man.
You don't have to lie. No, tell me a little bit about your experience at Howard. I remember when you were trying to get me to come on with you over to Howard. It's a shame. We both worked at the college level, and the lack of resources available to them is such a shame. And in the school that we went to, fortunately, was one of the top sports med programs, at least in the state of Pennsylvania. We had a lot of different things for our athletes, and I don't think they fully appreciate what they had available to them compared to some of the other schools. I remember, when I worked at Marymount, the head athletic trainer and myself, we had to share an office. Like literally, we had to stagger our desks so that we could fit in the room and kind of like wiggle our way past each other just to get out the door, right? And in terms of just resources, like all we had were like maybe 3 treatment tables, a very limited budget. Like the room was designed by the head, I can't think of the name. Was designed by somebody that had nothing to do with the athletic department at all. In fact, the entire building, the athletic building, was designed and developed without any input from anyone from the athletic department. Wow. Which is insane to me. But yeah, in starting in my career in terms of the strength conditioning stuff, I was literally just working out there, and I had some athletes come up to me and ask if I would train them. And, I said, absolutely, I'd work with them. There's no real strength and conditioning coach there. And I really felt bad for these college athletes, right? College athletes trying to compete at a high level, and they had absolutely no guidance in that. And then, so that slowly started that program when I was there. But, going back to your experience at Howard, tell me a little bit more about that experience. It's a great environment. I've always wanted to come, excuse me, drop my pen. Wanted to come to a homecoming game, but never got a chance to because I was so busy, doing other things at my location. I never got a chance to go out there, but I always heard that it was a great experience. It was an awesome atmosphere. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, outside of, like you said, the shortcomings, Howard was a great experience. And, if I could do it all over, I'd do it again. So with Howard, as you said, our office was actually larger than the training room. And our office was 2 parts of an old storage closet. So on one side, the office was probably about 20 by 30. So we had to fit 4 desks in that office. Yeah. So you had 4 athletic trainers in there, and then we had double doors, and it would open up to our storage room for all of the supplies. The budget wasn't bad, and that was the wild thing. It's just we didn't have space to put anything. Mm-hmm. So the last straw for me with Howard was I went through the trouble of getting funding
Mm-hmm.
to actually redesign the athletic training room, to redesign the locker rooms, pretty much an entire build out of the building. So
Yeah.
my relationship I had built with the department head for I want to say their kinesis or exercise science program had basically turned over the entire building we were in, which had classrooms, to the athletic training department and athletics. She
Mm-hmm.
said, just leave her one classroom, and in exchange for me teaching a class for her, an athletic training class for her, she would relinquish the building and we could do whatever we wanted.
Oh, wow.
So we got the funding, we ordered the supplies, the architects did the designs, and they hired a new president and spent all of our funds on plane tickets and hotel rooms.
Get out.
No joke. So we had everything laid out. And if you go to Howard now,
Yeah.
they did it 2 years later. And where we wanted the training room, they didn't put it there, but they built a new one in the center and told an ex-player that it was his money to pay for it. So you go to Howard now. My entire vision is there. So I'm so happy for them that they were able to get that. They did have a strength and conditioning program. The strength coach was awesome. He was a younger guy as well. He now does, he has a nonprofit where he travels the globe teaching basketball to different nations. So he ended up going over to China and working in their professional league with the women. Now he's over, I believe, in Africa, helping them start up over there. So he's doing some great things.
Awesome.
But the homecoming experience, surprisingly, I lived in Washington, D.C. and had never gone to Howard University in my entire life until I worked there.
Yeah.
I'd never been to a homecoming, but it is a great experience, just seeing people coming from afar, being out on the yard when we could actually go out there and we're not doing treatments and getting ready for games. But it was a great experience. And I say I wouldn't trade it for the world. I built a lot of relationships with the players there. I actually met my wife, which was, of course, after she graduated and after I was gone. But it's it could be so much better.
Yeah.
It should be so much better. And now with people starting to refocus, not just targeting large schools, they're starting to get a lot of big recruits and just awesome athletes. And if they would just put the money into it, man, that place will flourish. But it's a really big business school, so they kind of send all of their funds into the academic side of things, and athletics just kind of, the sports like volleyball and softball, they win a lot. Women's basketball is always great, but if they would just put some more into their men's sports, it would be great. But no, Howard was it. Once you got over the limitations, which we were very well prepared for. I believe we did a damn good job of what we had. Like I say, it was great. So I wish you would have came aboard, Dean. I really needed you over there, man.
I know, but like I said, I was trying to phase out of the athletic training, getting more into the strength and conditioning, which is really where my heart was. Like, I still enjoy athletic training. I like helping people.
Yes.
For one, my biggest. It wasn't so much in college, but in the high school level, my biggest beef with sports medicine at the high school level was everyone thinks that you're against them. Like, you have parents and athletes who think that you're holding them out because you don't want them to play their sport, which is baffling to me. Like I'm the complete opposite. Like, I played high school sports. I was a team captain on the football team. I played in college. I don't understand like what made you think that I don't want you to play your sport? But for whatever reason, athletic trainers are sometimes seen that way. And but to that defense a little bit, I have seen that kind of happen. They're it's just like any other profession. There are people that are good at their job, and there are people that aren't very good at their job. And I have seen some people that are very, very cautious, maybe too cautious with their athletes, and not letting them participate when they probably could. So I understand that, and I heard some stories about people before me and things like that, different locations and stuff like that. But it is what it is. But I think it is a shame, like, especially for college athletes, especially for a place like Howard. Like, it's such a historic program as
Mhm.
Howard. And in being in a spot in where you have so many athletes that are nearby, right? Like, DC is not that far from Pennsylvania.
Right.
Maryland's right there, Virginia's right there. So you have this hotbed of athletes. Like, if you look in terms of the national recruiting from high schools, there's so many kids that come from that area.
Yes, it is. Yes, especially basketball. Like DC is the number one area besides like Atlanta for basketball. And
Oh, absolutely. And now I worked at a D3 school, and we had kids from O'Connell, kids from DeMatha. Like, these are like basketball powerhouses on that East Coast. So
yeah, man. Yeah. Wow. And the funny thing is, and on the high school level, I had the exact opposite experience. So
mhm.
I don't know why, man, but I say I did love Georgetown Prep, and I still love all of those guys, man. I would call them kids, but they're adults now.
Yeah.
And, when I see them, a lot of the things that I've been revealing lately, they like, we had no idea, this was going on or that was going on. I'm like, man, if I'm at work, like I'm here for you guys.
Yeah.
What's going on with me is that's my thing. But
Yeah.
they're doing awesome, man. Yeah. So like I say, in both places, I built some very good relationships with people that I still keep in touch with. So
Yeah.
it's I say I wouldn't change it for the world. But you in the strength and conditioning thing, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. It's kind of a unique experience where we were working at in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
And sometimes rich kids will get kind of a bad rap, being these rich, spoiled kids. But I mean, really, all my kids were great kids. They're they have more resources available to them, yeah, and they may have a different perspective on life than I did. But at the end of the day, they're still kids, right? And my job was to be the best I could to help prepare them for the next level, and motivate them and push them physically and mentally. And I took it upon myself to, and I could have been right or wrong with it. I don't know. In being the person that doesn't always kind of give them all this positive feedback. Because when I was, at least at St. Albans where I was at, like, a lot of people were saying a lot of, I felt like there were a lot of people in each of the kids' corners telling them how great they were, right? And I was always more than willing to applaud their greatness, but at the same time, I wanted them to work on their issues, their flaws, the things that they could do to improve themselves, to make them better. And I know a lot of kids would say that to me all the time. It's like, man, because you don't really say a whole lot of nice things. I'm like I am nice, like when for me, like, when you do something really great, right? I want you to know that when I acknowledge that you did something really great, right? I didn't want to, you know, applaud you for picking up a piece of garbage. Like, everyone should, like, you should.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? I didn't want to applaud you for something that you should do on a regular basis, right? But if you go out of your way and do something, spectacular, I'll acknowledge that, absolutely. But I wasn't someone that clap my hands on everything that you did.
Yeah.
Especially when the things that you're supposed to do as a normal human being. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a cool experience. I mean, you guys had crab cakes. You guys were crazy.
We did.
Couldn't pay you, but they'd sell crab cakes.
Yeah, you're right. When they built that new center, they did sell crab cakes. They had to pay for that thing, man.
That place is huge.
Yeah, yeah.
And the I'm sure you had the same experience. Like, the number of athletes, like, there's so many really good athletes that had potential, or I had the opportunity to work with. And I'm not going to name drop some people, but it was amazing, and the humbleness of these kids that were these top of the line echelon kind of athletes, at least in my experience, was amazing. Like, these guys were the top of the top, and they went on to do stuff professionally, but they were the most humble kids that I had to work with,
Yeah, I agree.
which
I,
probably made them the reason why they were so good at what they did. Like, I could give them a workout, and I didn't have to be on top of them the whole time. They would just drive themselves, push themselves really hard, and say, "Coach, that was a good workout," and then it'd be done.
you're absolutely right. Like the humbleness of those kids, like, and it was weird because coming in, you would hear, yeah, hey man, be careful of that kid. This is the really rich kid.
Yeah.
Uh, you might want to watch out for dad or mom. And
Yeah.
when you talk to the parents, they are just appreciative.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you say, I don't want to name drop either, but these kids were great. Like, there's one family of kids where the shortest brother was 6'4", and he ended up at Stanford. Would have been the first round draft pick. Didn't need to play pro sports. He went on to do whatever he wanted to do. The next brother ended up at UVA as a tight end. Would have been drafted. Nope. Went on and, got his degree and did what he wanted to do. There was another one. He ended up in Indiana playing basketball, and I don't know where the baby brother ended up.
Okay.
But he was like 11, and I think he was like 5'11" at 11.
Yeah.
And just, bull in the china cabinet, nicest kid ever. But like you said, they were the most humble kids, the most appreciative, and they worked hard. Like you said, you didn't have to really be on top of them. Man, yeah, you're right, man. I could go down the list. I will name drop one. Freddie Adu's little brother.
Okay.
You would have thought like he would feel privileged.
Yeah.
The hardest working kid, man. And like, just even the family, they were great people to work with. And like I say, you are so right, man. The level of humble in the kids that everybody expects because they have those advantages to be, airy. You would never know if you just put those kids in a regular setting that they were rich kids.
Yeah.
And like, even to this day, you will have no idea. And they're doing some great things. Like you said, I do know a few that are playing pro. One's overseas, and he was by far the best basketball player I had ever seen. And the first time I met him, it was when varsity started, and he's in there practicing. I'm like, what grade is he in? They're like, he's in 8th grade. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And he's just in there, and he gave them the business. But yeah, he's overseas playing, doing very well. Very humble kid. We still talk off and on when we can in passing. Every now and then I bump into him. But like you say, it was a great experience.
Yeah. Coming from that area and then coming here to St. Louis, where, no offense to the St. Louis area. I mean, there are some really good athletes in this area, but just in terms of concentration, there was a lot over on the East Coast, and a lot that I personally worked with on the East Coast. And I remember when I was here in St. Louis, I was talking to a kid who was getting kind of frustrated with his recruiting aspect going into college. And I sat down and talked to him. I said, listen, recruiting, it's a funny thing, right? Two of the best athletes, I've ever worked with, weren't as heavily recruited as they probably should have been, right? One ended up being a walk-on at a university, who had he continued to play, he ended up quitting his sophomore year, but had he continued to play, which I don't know why he quit, but had he continued to play, he's probably a guy you would see on Sunday. Okay. Like, no doubt, hands down. And you were there whenever we had him. You put the ball in the kid's hands, he could score. Like, didn't matter where he was at, he could score. Yep. And another kid who's a baseball player, he he didn't have one Division I offer going into his senior year. The MLB scouts, when I talked to them his senior year, they said he's a top 5, if not top 10 draft pick right now at a high school, right? And he didn't even have a D1 scholarship offer. The school that he committed to gave him like a partial scholarship offer after all these scouts were after him to go in the MLB, right? And he ended up, bypassing the MLB and going into the college, which I think was a bad idea. But I mean, and he didn't, and then later on got drafted again after he graduated. But, if those two kids, and I try to put it into this kid's perspective, like if these two kids didn't get a scholarship or really any real major looks, I mean, it's not easy. It's hard to get seen and get noticed and get a scholarship, depending on where you're at, right? Like, unless you're one of these teams like Bishop Gorman, like who are playing like high level competition, right? And sometimes I think they get looked at a little bit too much. Like when you're on a team that is just great,
Yep.
right, and you're supported by all these people that are great, it's a lot easier to play, right? But when you're the best player on your team and everyone else is kind of okay, it's hard for you to stand out because you need them to be able to do their job so that you can do your job. And if they can't do their job, it makes it a lot harder for you. So you don't get the stats and the recognition that maybe you deserve. So the whole recruiting thing, it's so hard. And I understand these college coaches, they have to go by numbers and stuff like that. But it is a hard thing to do. And it's harder than what people think or understand in terms of how they can get recruited out of high school to play at the next level. So,
yeah. And I see that firsthand when, I'm around my best friend because, like you said, he's a running backs coach at DeMatha.
Yeah.
And heck, in this last draft, I believe he had 3 or 4 of his running backs drafted.
Yeah.
So you had A.J. Dillon from Boston College. Anthony McFarland from Maryland went to the Steelers.
Yep.
Oh, gosh. Who else? Why am I forgetting somebody? Chase Young. Of course, Chase Young's not a running back, but he also trained Saquon Barkley. So
okay. Oh, yeah.
The major schools actually hire him to come out and train the running back from Arkansas. That was his third one. They actually hire him to come out and train their players. So when you talk about recruiting, being in this area, you are definitely right that because of the concentration, it's like being in Pennsylvania. If you're a quarterback, people are going to look at you.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, it's just going to happen. And that's just historically, but also they put out good product. And here, basketball and football, in terms of the AAU circuit, amateur circuits, it's huge. I mean, you got to look at Mike Beasley, Kevin Durant, all of these guys have come out of this area. Even players that went down to Duke, Nolan Smith. It's been a lot. Ty Lawson, all of those guys come out of this area. So, like you say, when you go to DeMatha, you're gonna get looks.
Yeah.
And certain schools, Gonzaga, even St. Albans, but we know with the schools here, you're gonna get looks based on your demographic. And like you said, the Midwest, it just may be more difficult. But I mean, what you guys are doing out there, I remember when you sent me that message, and then I looked up and boom, you guys are open. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, man, like that's awesome, man. Yeah. So you do see it.
We're in a good position, but so kind of going back to you now. I've been following you, watching what you do, and you've gotten a lot of great results with your clients. You post up pictures of your clients all the time. You're really geared towards, the weight loss and kind of the bodybuilding type thing. Kind of tell me a little bit about how you think you've been able to have such great results with your clients.
Wow. I think the biggest thing is that when people come to me, they know that I have walked the walk, and that goes through many different realms, from being overweight, to being busy, to being a parent, to actually, fighting, basically being in a life or death situation with cancer. There's not many things that I can't relate to, in terms of the struggles people have when it comes to wanting to lose weight or make the change. So I believe I'm able to appeal to the mindset, their senses, and be sympathetic and empathetic. Some people have never had to endure being overweight and know what it feels like to go outside and smile at everybody, but you feel like crap on the inside.
Yeah.
It's a lot of psychology involved in it more than anything, because as I put up a post before, I believe that when everything's in life is going great, people lose weight with no problem. Or then you have that other end of the spectrum when everything's kind of torn down, they turn to exercise as the solution. But somewhere in the middle, you have to find that common ground, because when things get bad and people start to stress out, they start prioritizing, where they want to put their focus and energy. And I believe it's just, the level of communication I have with people. I ask a lot of questions. So people that don't like questions, we don't work out. We don't work out because it helps me learn you. There's not one solution for everybody. Everybody's a little bit different. And most of the time it's helping them deal with the things going on in life outside of what they eat, and going to a gym or exercising that either makes or breaks that process. Just communication, I think, is the biggest thing. And like you said, being able to pat somebody on the back when they do something great, but being realistic. I call it tough love moments I have with my client. But it's always from a position of finding a solution. So I don't believe in telling people they're making excuses, because I don't walk into their shoes.
Yeah.
I don't have to manage their day or deal with, whatever feelings or emotions they have. So these are your reasons. And when you have reasons, we try to find solutions to reasons, not somebody making an excuse, because it's really easy to stand on the outside to tell someone how they should react to what they're going through, and you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more involved. When clients talk to me and maybe they're not having the success that they want to have. Right. And then we have this conversation. It's like, well, what else are you doing? Right. Because working out is it's a really small piece of the pie. Right. There's so much more involved with your overall health, but also all these different things you have to kind of put in line in order for you to really start to see good results in terms of your training. Right. If you're not putting the right energy sources in your body, if you're not doing the right things in terms of your recovery, working on, mobility stuff, balancing your work life, type of balance thing, everything else at home, stress levels, all this stuff will pile up and create this thing for you that you kind of have to maneuver and kind of shift around. And like you said, not everyone is the same. Like, people ask me about nutrition stuff, and I tell them, like, look, first off, I'm not a licensed dietitian, first off, but I can give you information about what you're supposed to eat, right? I can tell you how much protein you're supposed to eat, all this other stuff in terms of how much you're supposed to eat. But the bottom line, like, that little formula doesn't fit for everybody. Everyone needs a little bit different approach in terms of nutrition. And I know you're a licensed nutritional specialist. Is that correct? Looking back on
Certified nutrition consultant and a fit nutrition specialist. Yeah. I would have been a dietitian, but that's like 3 more years of school.
Yeah, no. I'm done with it. Done.
I already know, and just sit. It's like, that's why I never went back to physical therapy school. It's like, I'm going to pay for 2 years to rehash everything I've already learned.
Yeah. Don't even give me that part. Like,
like, no. Sorry.
I could go into PT stuff.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that some other time. That stuff gets me fired up. But yeah, and I like the word you use. I should have used this earlier. Maybe what I was trying to describe earlier was tough love. I give a lot of tough love. Maybe it's part of kind of how I grew up. I could count probably on less than two hands the number of times my parents ever said anything highly positive. In terms of what I was doing with my life or where I was at or whatever. And maybe that's hardened me up a little bit. But at the same time, I wasn't afraid to recognize things that people actually did. But I think people do need tough love. I don't think, in fact, there was a research study done not that long ago, but there's this show called The 100. Have you seen that?
It's my show. I love that show.
So did you see the one where they were talking about positive and negative feedback and what you saw better results in?
Yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
So they ran a study and they were giving one group positive feedback and they were giving another group negative feedback, and they wanted to kind of see who would come out with the better results, right? And they actually determined that the negative feedback worked better than the positive feedback. Wow. And for me at least, I really feed off the negative feedback more than the positive. I mean, if I'm doing something good, like fantastic, great, I'll just keep doing that, right? But usually I don't need to be told that I'm doing something good because I kind of know that I'm doing something at least the right way or whatever. But when I'm doing something negative, maybe the wrong way, that's when I need more information, right? So if I'm doing something that's wrong, I may not know that I'm doing it wrong or may not be approaching it the right way. That's when I need someone to tell me otherwise.
Right.
And I used to get in kind of these not arguments, discussions with some of my superiors whenever, back when I was working for people, tell me what I need to do to improve myself. That's what I want to know. Right. I really fed off of, constructive criticism and things like that. Because to me, you don't know unless you know.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you just said what I said in a long way.
Yeah.
If you're going to, I guess I'll use the word criticize. If you're going to criticize somebody, tell them how to get better. Yeah. Because if not, you've lost that person. And that is one of the things that I take a lot of time explaining to people how they can improve and what to do. That is a huge thing for me. And this comes just from the bodybuilding side of things. You always hear trust the process. I've asked people questions in bodybuilding. They just tell me trust the process. That did not tell me how to get from point A to point B. You are telling me to blindly trust what you're telling me, but can you explain to me why I'm doing what I'm doing? So I think that is the biggest thing in my business, in my niche, and who I am. I'm going to tell you why we're doing this, and you can go fact check it. And then we can even, sometimes it may not be something that has been researched yet, as they're now starting to do a lot more research in terms of, just physiology and active things between the normal population and people that lift. Down at the University of South Florida, they're doing a lot in terms of like physique sports. Yeah. And, you see patterns when you do certain things, but I'm always going to explain why I'm asking somebody to do something, why I'm telling you to do this, what I expect, what we can expect, what, if this doesn't work, then this. So you are absolutely right. If you are going to give a person feedback, tell them how to improve, because if not, then you just kind of just beat on them, and there's nothing positive that comes out of that. That's just degrading. But now whether they listen or not, that's something different. But if you can say, hey, for you, this lift may not have been as strong, but this is how we can fix it. Your form, your foot placement, this, you have imbalances here or that. It's that's where I think I find my successes. I can explain everything I'm asking a person to do, and when people are informed, they make better decisions.
Yeah.
Uh, versus just kind of feeling like, all right, well, I'm supposed to do this, but why?
Yeah.
Uh, yep.
Well, I think that's, for people like us with the medical background, I think that at least for me, it has been a great benefit in terms of the health and wellness stuff. Because no knock on anyone else. I know there's some people that went to school for just exercise science that are very well versed and very very well knowledged in terms of sports medicine, but there's a lot of people that aren't. And for me, I think it helped give me the full picture of everything that's involved in terms of how an athlete is moving, trying to break down their movement pattern and really kind of try to um, predetermine what injuries they may be susceptible to because of their movement patterns, right? And then how to correct those issues. And also, if they are injured, what's really going on with that injury. I tell people all the time, your injury is not the cause of your injury. Your injury is the symptom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's just the first thing that broke down, in terms of your kinetic chain that maybe throwing it at a whack, and it's the first thing that kind of just went, heck with you, I'm going to cause pains.
Yes.
So I think that at least for me, it's been really helpful for me. And I know you're in a little bit different world. Like how has the sports medicine helped you in your aspect?
The same way, just when you see people lifting, I've been helping a friend now who's been trying to get more mass in her shoulders. And just one day she posted a video and she's doing a lat pull down and I could see the upper trap contracting as she's pulling down. So, I sent her a message and it started a dialogue. And like you say, it's a symptom. It is not the root cause. And for me, when I see, as you say, I'm always analyzing my clients' movements. That's why you don't see a lot of videos, because I'm I'm still, in the training room looking at gait patterns and watching people's foot placement, hand placements, and just different things to ward off injuries, but also to make sure that we are hitting what we want to hit.
Yeah.
So that background it's been tremendous. But in on the medical side, and people who are willing to take that information is great. But for some people, it's like, what? It's something that you end up teaching it a lot, even to just different people in the field that may not have the same experiences we have. But it has helped tremendously. Just little things like squat when people's knees fall in, being able to tell them why and how to fix that, and they flourish once you start to fix the anomalies in their gait and things. So it's I say, Dana, it's probably been one of the things that, not bragging or anything, that kind of separates me from a lot of people that are training others. And a lot of times I'll get people to say, hey, I got this person that, this is happening. What can I do to fix it? What should I look at? So I do feel those type of calls and things too. So it's been great. But it,
Go ahead. So, I mean, are you happy with your choice in terms of kind of getting away from the sports medicine to where you're at right now?
yes, 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 I am, and I am, because every year when we have these our training for the NFL spotters, when we would fly out to different cities, I would oftentimes be at the table with, the leaders of all the NATA districts and different people, and just hearing some of the gripes of how the profession has changed.
Yeah.
And yes, I am happy, man. They kind of went away from a lot of the things they were fighting for when we were really active in it. Yeah, I'm definitely happy. Like you say, I don't have to work for anyone in that aspect.
Yeah.
Do things my own way. Yeah, I'm definitely happy.
Yeah, I don't, get into the NATA stuff. I don't, I really am baffled by the whole thought process that these higher ups of the NATA are going, right? They're trying to push to get it to be a doctoral program now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so all these kids are paying for the school. Like right now, it's a master. You're required to have your master's degree, right? Am I understanding?
Mm-hmm.
So these kids are going to school for another 1 or 2 more years after, right? Which we both did, but they're not getting paid anything more than what someone with a bachelor's degree was, right? So the NATA is making this requirement for people to get these advanced degrees, but they're still going out and making a very minimal starting salary, which is insane to me. And I don't fully understand that, right? And with the process of way it's going now, and even colleges is starting to get into this world as well. I don't know if you've seen that, but everything is being contracted out to these physical therapy companies, right? And the difference between an athletic trainer and a physical therapist is very minimal, right? And in my opinion, we even had better training than physical therapy students did when we were in college, right? Physical therapy students go through 4 years of school without even seeing or even talking to a patient, really, like putting hands on, right? When we went to school, right, even more so when I went to school, because I was the last class to do the internship route. I started seeing patients when I was a freshman. I had my first team as a freshman in college because I had all my hours completed before everyone else in my class. I had my own team starting as a freshman. So I was working with patients. So from my freshman year to my senior year in college, I had worked with so many, patients already. So I had a world of experience before I even went into the real world.
Exactly.
My first job out of college, I was working in Ohio, and Ohio's rules are different than most other states. I essentially was a physical therapist, but I worked underneath a head physical therapist. So I worked at a sports medicine clinic. I had my own patient load. I did everything that a physical therapist did. The only thing is that my paperwork got checked off by the lead physical therapist every day. So I did the same job as him, but got paid as an athletic trainer.
Exactly. Which is, you're right, man. Because heck, when I went through college, we had to have 1,500 hours to graduate. So
Yeah.
you figure I had 1,500 more hours than a physical therapist with a bachelor's degree that I got in 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, man. I mean, heck, I remember the first day of Cal, they took us right in the daggone cadaver lab. So
Yeah.
that 40 people, like, you know what? I'm not built for this. They're like, we're going where? Yeah. We're going to go in this lab. We popped the bodies open, and it was like, well, now we're down to 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right, man. Yeah, the direction is just crazy. And now, I don't know if you know, and this was 2 years ago, the students can no longer cover the sport. So like how we had soccer,
Yeah.
you can't be there as an athletic trainer. You're just there for CPR purposes now.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that. That's just BS.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So they get no credit for this.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, they're pushing for this higher level degree, but what benefit does someone have to go to graduate school just to say they have a master's?
Mm-hmm.
Now they got to pass the test.
Yep.
Which don't even get me on how that's changed, because that test we took was an 8-hour test, man.
Yeah. At the time, it was considered one of the hardest tests of its type, only second to not even the MCATs. It was second to, gosh, it was harder than the bar. I guess maybe it was no, not the MCATs, because I know someone that took the MCATs, they said it was pretty easy. I forget, there's only one other exam of its kind that was harder than the NATA exam. And the NATA like certified athletic trainers were at the bottom tier in terms of salary for all these other people that took a related exam, which is baffling. And for people that don't know, like when I graduated, right, it's a 3-part test, right? You you take this written part of the test where essentially like you answer like anything you possibly could know about sports medicine, right? And then there's another part of the test where it's a written simulation, which when I took it was hilarious, because you're in this room full of people and you're taking this written sim. They give you this little marker, right, and you go from one scenario to the next and you highlight the potential answer, right? And then when you highlight it with a marker, it would then kick out a response about what happened when you did that, right? And there's no limit on how many answers you could highlight, right? But you'd hear some people because on some of the, depending on where you're at, on some of the answers you highlight, if you highlighted it, it could potentially say athlete died. Yep. In the middle of the test, you'd hear people go, oh, right? And someone obviously killed somebody in the test. In the middle of taking this kind of stressful exam, right? You're sitting there trying to think about like, oh, what do I need to do next? Blah, blah, right? And it doesn't sound like it would be that high pressure, but it was. Like really, you don't know, and then to get immediate feedback in terms of what you did and the outcome of what you did coming right up, it was kind of stressful. In the middle of doing that, right, they pull you out of the room and stick you into another room full of 10 or so high-level certified athletic trainers to evaluate you in a bunch of different categories, right? So I was already sweating, taking that part of the test, and I get pulled into the room, right? And I remember the first part of the test is I had to find these 10 bony, landmarks on the body, right? They give you a landmark, and you got 10 seconds to find it, and then they spit out the next one, right? And I'm not listening to the guy. The guy's talking, blah blah blah, whatever. I'm just looking at all the answers. I'm like, oh, I know this and this. I'm going down the list. I'm like, I know them all, right? He goes, first one, click, says it. I don't know, maybe like says one. Okay, and I just stand there, and I didn't move. I did not move. I couldn't think.
Wow.
For whatever reason. And he went through 5 of them before I even started putting stickers on people. I'm like, at one point I started laughing. I laughed. And they're just looking at you like dead face, like.
Right. Yeah, because they have no personality.
No response. I'm like, after that point, I'm like, I messed up this test, right? And I actually probably did fine on the rest of the test, but that one, like the first start, for whatever reason, and like I said, I went through it all. I knew all the answers, and then I just froze. I don't know what happened. I have no idea. It's like I couldn't think, and then literally like after like the second or third question, I just started laughing.
Yep.
And they're just kept on like, next question, boom, boom, and that 10 seconds went like that.
Yeah. Oh. But you're right. They do just come abduct you right out of the middle of the test. It's like, oh, your turn. You're like, all right.
Yeah, really, like the most stressful part of the test, they're pulling you out of to go do something else that's really stressful. And you're like, this is insane. That's why the second time I took it, I took each part individually. So much better.
Really? Yeah. See, I only had to do the one part, so.
Yeah. I took each part separately, and then I did absolutely fine. In fact, I fell asleep waiting in that room while everyone was taking the practical exam. I fell asleep waiting for me to get pulled into that other room, and I did fine. I even think I had the same questions. I did fine.
Nice. That's
awesome. But anyway, going way off track. But yeah, I don't understand. With working for these PT clinics as an athletic trainer, and it's really part of what kind of pushed me out of it. Is you find that your job isn't there to service the athletes.
Yeah.
Your job is there to be a referral source to the physical therapy clinic. Right. I remember getting a lot of questions about, in terms of like what I was doing as an athletic trainer at my location. Right. I worked for one company that had this 2-day policy. If an athlete wasn't better in 2 days, I was supposed to refer them to a doctor. I was like, what? Never did that.
Grade 1 ankle sprain, we need to see the doctor.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm not going to waste people's time to see a doctor. In fact, I did the exact opposite. I told people, like, this is what it is, right? Instead of going to see a doctor right away, because as soon as you see an orthopedic, they look at you and go, okay, don't do anything for 2 weeks, come back and see me. I said, so to bypass that, I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this for a week, see how we're progressing. If we're on track, we're progressing well, we're going to do this for another week. And then that way, when we go in to see the orthopedic, we can say, we've done this already. This is where we're at. Right. And that way, the orthopedic goes, okay, well, let's go get an MRI or let's do this. Right. At that point, they're ready to take action because you've done everything that you're supposed to do in terms of in terms of your recovery after the injury. And so, and especially if you're really good at what you do, the doctor's competent in terms of, or feels comfortable with what you have done with the patient already. And then is more susceptible to you telling them, hey, we need to go get an MRI. Because doctors, you can't go to a doctor's office and say, I need to get an MRI.
No.
Because that's not how it works.
Let's get this x-ray first.
Yeah, I try to tell people that. They don't listen to me.
Yeah.
Right. I had patients where I would tell them that. They said, well, I want them to get an MRI. I'm like, well, you're not going to be able to. And so they would just really ignore what I said and they'd go see the doctor, and the doctor would tell them the same thing that I just told them. Right. And then the kid would come back and say, yeah, we saw the doctor. I'm like, why? I told you didn't. And it's like, yeah. He's like, well, what did the doctor say? What you said to me. I'm like, okay.
Even though you said my ACL might be torn. Here's an ACL.
Yeah, and I understand, like, as a parent, I understand, like, wanting to get your kid in right away and because you want to find out what's going on, right? But if you have someone who's and you can tell when someone's good at what they do, and maybe that was the thing. Maybe people couldn't tell that maybe I'm not good at what I do. I don't know. But if someone seems fairly competent, give them a chance. Listen to what they have to say. It's kind of see where it takes you. It really needs to be kind of a cohesive environment between parent and medical personnel in terms of what the overall care is for their kids.
Sports medicine team, right?
Never happens though. It never works that way.
Test question: who's the sports medicine? Yeah, and that was one of the things at prep we had the advantage of because one of the doctors, his son went to the school. So
yeah,
I did work for a clinic during the day up in Montgomery Village, and it was owned by, I believe, 2 of the parents. So they had sent several of their sons through there. So they were really good with, like you said, knowing we were competent. If we asked for something, we probably needed it.
Yeah.
And then the immediate team doctor was actually a dermatologist.
Yeah.
And the funny story is that's how I found out I had cancer, because he did the surgery to remove the cyst out of my arm. He had removed one out of my leg in like 2006, very small. And when I found the one in my arm, he's like, if it gets bigger or starts hurting, come back, I'll cut it out. So he would let me stay awake. So I literally watched him cut me open. The scar is much larger now from the second surgery I had, but
yeah.
And he took it out. It was like this big. So on the surface, it looked like a nugget.
Yeah.
It came out, it's the size of a chicken breast. So, I kind of knew, but his son battled leukemia while I was there and beat it. So I just used that doctor's circuit and it worked out for me. So yeah, I had the opposite experience in terms of, the parents, the doctors being cooperative, but also we were able to work. Um, they allowed us to handle as much as we could before we started shuttling kids to the physicians.
Yeah. No, I'll say my experience at St. Albans was completely different, because at St. Albans I worked for the school, right? And really, I mean, at St. Albans I was the assistant athletic trainer. Jay was the head athletic trainer while I was there, and I was really more the head strength conditioning coach and the assistant athletic trainer, though I did a lot of both. But no, like whenever I had to move out here to St. Louis, I couldn't find anything in terms of strength conditioning for me right away. So I went back to athletic training, and then the only athletic training jobs that were here were working for physical therapy clinics. And then that's, what led into it. But
yeah. That's how I understand things are now.
Yes.
Because one of my old assistants is working for a clinic and then going to a high school. So
yeah, it's not a great model in terms of patient care, to be honest with you. I like using my knowledge, and I like working with the athlete versus being someone that gives someone a Band-Aid and tell them when to go see a doctor. Like that's not what I went to school for.
Not at all.
And so, I got all this knowledge. I want to use it, right?
Yep.
Right. So you touched a little bit about your cancer, and we'll spend some time on that. What are the positives that came out of, fighting cancer? And it's hard to say that, they're definitely, the life and death situation with dealing with cancer. And I have a patient who's got cancer, is a real thing, but, I'm always the person that says, what positive can I get from this experience?
That's a good question, Dane. That's one of the things that that I lean on. The positives that came out of it was I knew that I no longer had time to not appreciate every day of life, because today you are perfectly healthy, and tomorrow you get a phone call that says you have cancer. So I think the positive is you'll find out how resilient you really are, how strong you can be. But the biggest thing was I live every day to the fullest. That was a positive that came out of it. And yeah, just living every day to the fullest extent, not leaving anything on the table, and just putting my health before anything. I can still handle my priorities, but if I'm not healthy, what am I doing it all for? So I think that was a positive. It gave me a new outlook on life. Because I tell people, until you have experienced life or death, you don't really appreciate life. Like that motorcycle accident made me appreciate life, because I knew I was going to die in that moment.
Yeah.
And right before my bike hit the ground, I remember saying, God, don't let me die. Unconscious for 15 minutes. The lady had called and told him I was dead. So those life or death experiences, they kind of push you to do all of the things you wanted to do, to me. So the positive was just the appreciation for life, and really just pushing myself to do all of the things that I know I can do, that I want to do. And yeah, I think that's the positive of it.
So, not to make too light of your motorcycle accident, what kind of motorcycle were you driving?
Suzuki GSXR 1000.
Yeah, see that for me, if I get a motorcycle, I'm driving a Harley, because I think people on a Harley is getting less accidents than guys on this. How fast were you going?
When I hit probably 100. stuff went bad, probably about 170.
Oh my goodness. Where were you at?
Pennsylvania Avenue. Probably about 2 miles into Maryland on Pennsylvania Avenue.
You were floating.
That's exactly what it was. Floating.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm blessed. Like I say, I am totally blessed. And the crazy thing was, I stood up, and the motorcycle was still running. So, the lady's parked on the side of the road. She gets out the car, like, "Oh my God, I thought you were dead." So I'm looking, I look down, my watch is gone. I love watches, Dave. So
Yeah.
first thing I'm looking for is to call somebody. She hands me the phone. It's kind of, a little cracked up.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. This is when Under Armour was first kind of breaking. So I had on a backpack, jeans, a fleece jacket, and an Under Armour dry cool shirt. For whatever reason, everything the Under Armour was covering did not get road rash, although the back of my jacket is ripped out.
Wow.
So, and anything from the elbow down, like road rash galore. My helmet is like shaved down from when I slid face down. And like my hand looked like a grapefruit here. I lost all the skin on the back of my hand, and my knees are just destroyed. So they get everything off, and I'm looking. So they don't cut that off. The people at the hospital stole my daggone shirt. Like, it's something special about this shirt because everywhere else is just shredded, and nothing that shirt covers. So I always laugh about that. Like, they stole my daggone shirt and my watch, because the watch was broke. The watch wasn't messed up. So, but no, yeah, right. I was floating, literally. I remember the bike, because there you have the shoulder, grass, a ditch, and then woods.
Yeah.
I remember the bike hovering over the ditch, so literally floating. And that's when I was like, just don't, because usually when a motorcycle hits grass, it goes down. So when it hit the grass and I didn't fall, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It hovers over the ditch, and that's when I was like, God, just don't let me die. The bike goes back out on the shoulder, and I remember just like laying the bike down on the side. I hit my head, and I remember standing up. So,
wow.
Like I say, when you're faced with those situations in life or death, you really find out.
Yeah.
In an interview I did last week, about a week ago, I think now with, unfortunately with this COVID scare, a lot of people are reevaluating life because they're seeing people sick today and passing away in 2 weeks. And, like I say, you make a good point. The good thing about the cancer was the appreciation of life, because we take a lot of things for granted. Mm-hmm. So I try not to take anything for granted now, man, because I know feel good today and things can turn on you tomorrow. So,
yeah. Well, I'm proud of you, brother. You've done a lot of great things with your life. I've enjoyed watching you kind of on your journey. And honestly, like, seriously, like, all of you probably for the most part don't know what this man has gone through and kind of his own transformation. I still remember sitting in the computer lab talking to you and stuff like that, so I know the old Carlos and seeing the new Carlos now, man. You've done a great job, not only with your clients, but with yourself, kind of changing your life around and doing things that you need to do to get back on track. I'm really proud of what you've done and where you're at, and I look forward to seeing you a little more on your journey. And that's pretty much where I'm at, man. Hit Carlos up if you want more information from Carlos. He's at Pinpoint Fitness and Nutrition Training. I will put some more of his information down on the link, and if you have any questions for him, feel free to ask him and hit him up.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, man. From going back to 2002. Oh.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, it is, man. Coming up on 20 years. Well, you already met 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years for me next year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Getting old, man. Getting old. Like, yeah, you're getting a little older. You got how's the baby treating you?
Oh, man, she's awesome. She is. All the energy. She is awesome, man. Yeah, every day she sits there. She wakes up and stares at me till I get up. Like just sits.
How old is she now?
6 months on Tuesday.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom.
Wait till they get older. That
Oh,
that cuteness that goes away.
it does. You know, I got a 10-year-old, so he's
Well,
a
that's how
great kid.
old my oldest one. She's 11.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
slamming doors in your face yet?
No.
Oh,
We got a good relationship. We got a good relationship.
we
So
do too. It's just she's in,
transition.
developing as a female, and she's getting to that stage, and so she's a little fighting back a little bit.
Yeah, I hope we don't get to that phase, but you know.
Oh, it's gonna come.
I hope not, man. I hope not. My 10-year-old is such a sweetheart, man. So that's the most important thing for me is allowing her to be a kid and not have to do adult things, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do the same, but I wonder sometimes if we're making it too easy for these kids sometimes.
Yeah,
I,
I get that.
I keep asking myself that question all the time. Like, what is what I'm doing as a parent? How's that going to affect her as she gets older? Am I making it too easy for her to do things like, especially with these kids, they have such access to so much stuff now, right? You know, it's amazing what they have available to them. I don't know. I don't
Oh, I just try to set a good example, and even with her being very descriptive and everything, and
yeah.
you know, let her make her choices and try to guide her within that as much as possible. But I do understand that, like, you know, we had to earn a lot of things as kids.
Yeah.
We really did. And, you know, it's tough because she's a great student.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when I think back, my sister gave me the world, man. Like I was straight A kid. So if I wanted something, I could get it. But like you said, I was an entrepreneur. So a lot of things I did for myself.
Yeah.
So no, I totally get it, man. That might be a good, you know, another a good shake up conversation, right? You know,
Parenting 101.
yeah, for real. Like, what are we doing? Are we giving them too much? But can we parent the same way that we were parented?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. You know, so much has changed even in just the mindset of the kids.
Oh, there's no way I could parent the way my parents parented. No way. I'd be in jail.
Stories.
I'd be in jail.
Stories from school. I was sitting there like, guess I didn't have it that bad. You know?
No joke. No.
Yeah, for real. I don't know, man. Like I say, she's a little entrepreneur in herself, so she's heavily into science and math. So I'm just gonna let her run with that. You know, she wants to be a pediatrician. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, at one point she wanted to be a biochemist and find the cure for what did she tell me she wanted to find the cure for? I want to say dementia.
Oh.
Yeah. So like I
Hey,
said,
if
like that.
she's really interested in that stuff, let me know. My brother um, was a researcher for Vanderbilt, and he was trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's. Now he's at UNC doing the same thing for UNC. So if she wants to talk to someone, let me know. I'll set her up.
Yeah, please, man. I think, damn, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I got a story about UNC when I tried to go there for my PhD.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
he's smarter than me technically, but I believe my IQ is higher than his.
man.
Yeah, I hold that over. he's a smart dude. Yeah.
That's
Don't
awesome.
get me wrong. He's
Wow.
so.
Damn, that. Whew. I would love to just sit and listen to him talk. You know, just wow. That's amazing, dude. That is dope.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's a smart guy. So.
Apparently.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. So next week I'll be meeting with Adam Boswell. He's gonna go over. You remember Boswell? Maybe not. He was the assistant football coach at St. Albans.
I'd have to see him. Those names.
So he will be on next week. He's going to talk a little bit about his experience with CF and kind of how he's modeled his life around that and kind of what he's doing now in terms of exercise and personal training and things like that. So we'll get into that next week. So log on next week and watch that. All right. Thank you all. Have a good day. Close this out, Carlos. Hold on.